All right, Ori Keren. Now, am I pronouncing your last name right? Is it Keren, Keren, correct?
Yeah, absolutely.
Nailed it. All right. Well, welcome to the Jason Wright Show. So good to have you on all the way from Tel Aviv. We talked offline about how it's kind of amazing. Let's look at the bright side, which is really easy for me to say here in the comfort of my home in the United States of America, as you're in Tel Aviv. But nevertheless, in the middle of all that's going on in the globe, the fact that you and I get to still communicate live, these thousands of miles apart, what an amazing thing, and it's just kind of occurring to me now as I say this. I mean, you and I had this conversation about everything that's going on over there right now, and some of what we're dealing with, and it's just the whole globe is kind of, coming to grips with what's happening in the Middle East, but what a remarkable time we live in that you can be visiting with me, and so, brother, I'm so glad to have you here today, man.
It's great to be here. I share the same sentiment.
Well, fantastic. All right, so before you got on, I told you I wanna learn your origin story. I know you come from research and development. I know you come from software engineering. I know that you've created a platform that essentially helps with the engineering process. One of the things I'm always curious about for entrepreneurs like yourself, and, if I'm not mistaken, LinearB is the first company that you have acted as a founder. I'm always
Yeah.
interested in learning kind of that origin story of where you saw the market, and then you had the boldness to go out and you not only you see the market, but then determine, okay, I know how to serve this market that may not even realize it exists. And in fact, that's one of the fun things I like about market development is a lot of people don't even see the market that's there and they until it all of a sudden is created. So let's just start there with your origin story, how you got into software development, and then kind of bring us forward to Linear B and what's happening there.
Yeah, thanks. So I usually like to start a story of when I was a child, um, I had two hobbies. Maybe usually they don't live together, but my parents bought me like a Sinclair Spectrum 48K, which was this old computer, but very cool. Still, I think the best machine ever invented. I played games on it, but I also found out that there's like you can program things in BASIC and give it instructions, and it does like the thing. Felt like a magic to me. My other hobby, by the way, was basketball. I used to play basketball until like still in high school, etc. So, yeah, that's like a seed that was planted in my head around um, I remember I told my sister, you got to come here and play this crappy game that I invented. It wasn't any good, but the fact that you create something, you build something with a computer and then other people use it and they get joy of it. It's still, up until this moment in time, it's like what drives me. Like now we're doing it at a higher scale, but building product, building things and giving and helping solve problems and seeing people use them. It's still like what drives me. But this is
Well, wait a
how,
minute, wait a minute. I gotta stop you there, Ori. I gotta stop you. What was the game? What was the game? What were the rules? Kind of tell us about the game. You can't
I'm
just
into
pass over that,
sport.
dude.
I'm into sports, so and where I come from in Israel, like soccer is the most popular sport, even though I play basketball. So it was like you had like a goalkeeper, and like balls were thrown, and she had to stop. You gotta catch all of them, like a very simple game.
Yeah.
Uh, but that was the game. It didn't
How
always work. Sometimes,
how
yeah.
long ago was that?
This was when I was 13, 14. This is 19, 88, 89.
Oh, dude, that's okay. So that's not too long after. Because it sounds kind of like Pong, except you're trying to, that's one of the very first, Atari games, right? I mean, it's pretty similar, and you're not too far behind Atari, right?
Yeah, it was, I played Atari, but this was different. Like the computer was, I don't know how to explain it. It's like the fact that even to load games, you had to do, to go through a lot of like
Yeah.
challenges. You had a tape, you got to put a cassette in and to load the games, and the fact that you can program it. But yeah, it was very similar to Pong, and that was the first game. That's where like things started.
That's so cool, man. Okay, and that just fascinates me because I always like now gaming is such a huge deal, but you're OG. I mean, you're you're like, you're from the way back, dude. That's so cool. Okay, all right, there. You satisfied my curiosity. I had to know the game. Continue, please.
Yeah, so, I went through a different route. It was like part of my childhood, and like where I come from, you gotta serve, you do mandatory army service. Like I went through that. You go to college or the equivalent to college at the age of 22, 23. My journey was a little bit different. I went to work in a company that maybe the analogy is like the Yahoo of Israel or something like that. And I took like a data entry job. So this is why I started, like, write about websites, etc. But the room next to me, I saw the programmers are sitting and starting to build things. And I told them, hey, what are you building? Show me the books. Show me what you're building. And there was a book of like basic, and say, hey, I remember this when I was a child. Give me something to try. I even still remember what was the first thing that they gave me, and I loaded all the way to production. That's how I started. And then, once my project was over, they said, hey, do you want to come here and stay? And so I actually started working as a developer. Like, I taught myself, like, how to do it. And then, I said to myself, yeah, I got a good job here, but if I want to do it seriously, I got to go also to, and maybe learn it. And so I went to like college and learn, side by side by progressing my career, which is different than some of the people do. And I worked in the industry. I was like, I really enjoyed technology. I really enjoyed implementing things. I didn't want to hear about promotions because, I want to just move and write in different technologies and experience everything. These are interesting days, but the languages, like you would still write throughout all the stack. I wrote in C, C++, all these languages, all the way up to Python the last days or the last year. Sorry. So, but this was cool. I came into a crossroad where I worked in a company. I wanted to make more impact on the company I worked in, and I understood that the only way to do it is to be a team leader. And from that, it depends how do you look at it, but it started like a slippery slope of, okay, going up the chain. Okay, now I want to make more impact, so I became a group leader, and then I became like an engineering leader. Um, I was twice VP of engineering in companies that grew fast, that had good business success, and I had to, grow the engineering team and support that. Both of them were acquired. The first one was by AT&T. We built like a early version of Zoom, like we competed with WebEx those days. And the second company was more of a security company named CloudLock that was acquired by Cisco in 2016. So that's like my journey. And after the second acquisition, I stayed, I think like for 18 months or something like that in Cisco. And I told myself, okay, what's next for me in tech? So I had like two choices. One, okay, get out of tech. I really like history, by the way. So I started learning history. Like, it was really cool taking some courses, etc. But the other option was maybe I start my own thing, like, because at the last company I was a technological leader, but it was the first time that I was brought into like sales conversations. So I started seeing like the other side, like the go-to-market side, and spiked like my curiosity around, okay, how do you build like a strong, sales machine, etc. Um, so that's the origin story. At that point in time, I told myself, okay, if I'm building my company, I can't build like a restaurant tech companies because I don't know anything about restaurants, or I cannot build like a health tech or insurance tech. I don't know about these spaces. What I know is how to build engineering teams, the challenges that exist there. I've done this for 20 years. And me and my partner, Dan, my co-founder, we started looking at the space, and we say, hey, like, yeah, we came into a lot of like staff meetings and board meetings as engineering leaders. We didn't know what to present. There was no standardization on what do you measure, what are the standard KPIs. how to measure R&D. It was a good timing because, those platforms where you store the code, where you store the ticket, were kind of like going to the cloud and became more open. So you can inspect them and kind of learn things. It's also a good timing because research was starting to be developed. Or what are the standard KPIs? Like, if in sales, you can look at the funnel and you want to look at conversion rates from a lead to opportunity. Same thing exists in R&D. Like, you just got to standardize that. And that's the origin story of how we started LinearB. It was really clear that we know how to solve those problems. We're very passionate about those problems and how you scale an engineering org and how you measure if it's trending in the right way. So that's my story. That's how I started LinearB. And maybe, I keep saying there's some entrepreneurs out there that at the age of, I don't know, 22, 23, say, I know what I want to do. I'm going to conquer the world. That's not my story. My story, I had to go through the phases and feel comfortable. Yeah, now I know. I feel very passionate about this problem. The bug of like inventing things always existed in me, but that was the first point that I also want to build a company to solve the problem.
I think that's very insightful there. So it sounds to me like, just as a quick recap, that you knew you wanted to be an entrepreneur, you knew you wanted to do something, but you had to go and find a problem to solve that matched with your capabilities. In this case, you're obviously uh, a talented software engineer, and so you need to go. And there was a problem. I think that's fascinating too with R&D. I know it sounds like, and you helped me on this to make sure that I'm tracking. I know one of the hardest courses for me in business school was decision modeling, which was essentially trying to make those decisions of do you build versus buy, and kind of how you allocate resources based on the desired outcome. Is just really, really challenging for me. And I think with R&D, that's got to be tough because you I would think that it would be hard to determine the metrics of success other than a process of elimination. I guess that in R&D, you're finding out a lot of what doesn't work along the way. And so what were some of the things that struck you that was not being looked at that you were then able to kind of create out, I guess, through an algorithm of, okay, this has a success. This is a success. So if this is successful, then move forward to this, and tracking, okay, you're pouring all this money into research and development, which some people, I mean, like we've had a lot of industries that have had to pull back on R&D. And it's one of the most painful things for things that are especially like medically related if you pull back, but then also it can just be so expensive. And a lot of people, they want to cut their R&D budget first, but it sounds like you kind of help quantify whether or not, even though the final product has not been developed, that the R&D is still moving in the right direction. So what were some of those inputs and ways of looking at it just from a high level before you put it, when like the whiteboard behind you, what would you kind of put on a whiteboard before you put it into code? And what I'm trying to get at here, Ori, is just, I want to understand your thinking, because that's one of the things I'm always challenged with, is just how to be a better thinker, how to be a better decision modeler. What were the things that you were starting to try to develop as those inputs? And I apologize for my rambling, but that's just how my mind works, to try to get to kind of how you thought about solving this problem in the R&D area.
Yeah, so it's a great question. I think today, after a couple of cycles, I know how to speak about it. Because we have a lot of customers, and we went through like the messaging and the journey, etc. We call it the dual mandate problem, and I explain what it is. Originally, we didn't call it like that, but that's how we also like looked at the problem. And what it is that engineering leaders, they have to almost control two languages. One language is the operational efficiency of your organization. That's an internal problem. So again, comparing to sales, it's like what's the conversion rates are like, is that working okay? Or do we have some place where things are stuck? Same goes for R&D, operational efficiency. You can look at what's happening to your code from when it's being committed, written, or even designed until it reaches production. And where do you have bottlenecks in the process and where it's not efficient? And then slice and dice it by, teams, by services, by different things. Um, and that's just the tip of the iceberg. There's a lot of like things in operational efficiency, but that's almost like a looking internally on your organization, finding the problems, helping to solve them, etc. Then there's the other thing, other side of the dual mandate. Usually when you grow your organization, and when you hit like 80 people, 100 people in your or R&D organization, you meet a new persona, the CFO, the VP of Finance.
Mm.
And as an engineering leaders, you got to be able to speak that language. This is the business language. Okay, these are the projects that we're investing in. This is how much we're investing into just keeping the lights on our existing services. This is how much we're investing, in innovation or enhancing the existing features. And you got to have this data set as well and control the data. And these are our projects. This is how much they're costing us. Here's how much, ROI they're giving us, like how much customers are using them. So it's almost like two different set of problems, and then engineering leader sits in the middle of that, and they need to speak both of the languages. They got in this economy and in this era, they got to be able to talk to the CFO, show the investment, protect the investment they should protect, and the things that are not flowing well or maybe not have like high business impact, know how to pause them and stop them. And on the other hand, also keep looking internally to your organization and see that things are flowing the right way. So it was always like trying to solve those two problems. We didn't call them like this dual mandate vision, but it was always like problems from the two ends of what I just explained.
All right. So does LinearB go in, and is it essentially helping to kind of translate from the engineer to the CFO, that CFO keep funding this project for R&D, because look, we can show you quantifiably that it's making headway, and if you're moving along. So is that what it's doing? Is it essentially making the project, again, if I'm a CFO and I'm looking at R&D, I got to start at some point, see some light at the end of the tunnel, right? I can't just keep dumping money into something that's never going to come to fruition unless you're Google or somebody like that just has, an endless well of funds. So is that what LinearB, is that the problem that you guys are solving? Is it primarily for, I gotta believe it's for both teams. I mean, it keeps the R&D team, the engineers knowing, hey, yeah, we're moving in the right direction, but also to help that engineer explain to the CFO, this is a worthy endeavor. Let us keep going, and we can show. Is that am I kind of tracking on what LinearB solves?
Absolutely. We're a software delivery management platform. That's what we're calling like the space we're operating in. And it's the two domains. On one hand, like, let's measure ourselves if we're in engineering org, like how are we doing, where things are stuck in the funnel. There's an existing parallel funnel in engineering, like the sales funnel.
Yep.
And we got to look and keep track of it, and where do we have bottlenecks and solve them. We're now, by the way, also getting into the workflow and helping solve some of these problems. So that's one side. And the other side is absolutely help the engineering leader share the same language, share the same data with the CFO, and tell, okay, and with the rest of the business, with the VP of sales, with the peers and the executive table, and kind of show, here are the projects that we're working on. This is like how much they're costing, and this is the ROI on them. And here's my recommendation on, let's, double down on this. Let's stop on it. It's sometimes challenging because, in engineering, there's infrastructure investment and those non-functional investment that doesn't necessarily translate into revenue, but it's the engineering leader role, like to say, hey, this is a don't touch. This is why we're doing it. It will enable us to move in a high velocity. But what I'm seeing is that it's an era of macroeconomics that if the engineering leader doesn't initiate that conversation, it will come to him or to them as a surprise, and then it's a battle that is like, it's going to be hard. But if they take the initiative and they have the data, they can start with a narrative that they believe in and help, lead the way, like with data to the right place that they think they should be leading.
Makes perfect sense. Now, let's go back to now. Let's tell us an entrepreneur story. All right. So now we kind of got the nuts and bolts. We understand a little bit more about what LinearB is solving for. Now, remind me, whenever you left to start LinearB, were you employed and then decided I've got an idea? And take us through that. What was that point of transition where you and your partner said, okay, we've discovered the problem that we want to solve that matches with our capabilities and our strengths. And how did you find that first client? Did the first client exist? And they said, hey, if you guys build this company, then yeah, we will sign on. If you can deliver, Ori, what you say, we will be your first client. Like take us through and how you process that. What were some of the goals you set? Some of the just the mindset that you had to get to know that you were it was worthwhile taking this huge leap that every entrepreneur or every founder in particular at some point has to take.
Yeah. So we started, I think that we had like, both of us, both me and Dan, my partner, um, Dan is US based. I'm based in Israel and Tel Aviv, like I said. Um, this is also interesting, by the way. We were good friends, very good friends, with a lot of respect, and we started a company like miles away and started iterating, and then of course uh, traveled and met each other and iterated. But here's what we did: we said, okay, we went into like 3 or 4 months of like thinking, building things, trying stuff before starting the company, and we had the opportunity to do that. We both went after like an acquisition, so we had a little bit of like, we weren't like very very rich, but it gave us like a window of time, like to start to say, okay, we can now sit and think and like start building things. What we did basically is that we built the first version. I coded the first version, then went and looked for design partners. I also looked for some design partners, but and what we told the design partner is, listen, you're going to give us access to your systems where we're going to give, we didn't even build a product, but we're going to give you a first version, a PDF that was like kind of like already containing some of the insights that we found in your process. And all we're asking back is give us, back, say, hey, this is valuable, this is interesting. Yeah, I would do something with a product like that. And we had like 10 or 15 design partners that really quickly we understood that there's something there, because all of them said, this is interesting, I want more. I'd say like almost all of them became our early customers. I think just maybe 2 or 3 didn't, but all of them were our first customers. So this is how we started, and I don't think, and that's a really important point, because you asked me like, we even that concept or the problem that we're solving problems in that area. So the
Sure.
first version wasn't exactly as I describe it today, which I think every entrepreneur needs to understand. Like, you iterate on the problem and on the pain points, and you get, then that's another thing that we learned really fast, and we got to it. But this is how we started. We had like 10 or 15 design partners that said that it's interesting. We went and like raised like a pre-seed round just to be able to get some employees and build this into a product. That's how we started our journey, basically.
All right, now let's talk about that a little bit because that's one of the things that's always when I'm talking to entrepreneurs and they come to me and they say, "All right, I want to go raise some capital. I've got an idea. I want to I want to actually put this thing into action. Where do I go? Do I borrow? Do I get investors? Do I go VC? Depending obviously on the size of the business they're trying to either acquire or to start. What was that process for you guys? It sounds to me like you had a little bit of cushion and you weren't going to just sit around and go, well, we got some money. Let's go sit on the beach for a little while. No, you guys were ready to get to work and do something with it. How did you raise the capital? How did you make that list of initial investors and people that you would go to start to build the company? What was that process like?
Yeah. So that process was, for us specifically, after the acquisition, in Cisco, we had some, like initial connection, with some of the folks, in corp dev, etc. Asked for their advice, etc. Then basically we got we built a list of people that we can approach. What we did, which if it's very specific and very individual, like to entrepreneurs and their state and how much, runway they have before they want to raise, because it's hard. Sometimes you have families, etc. You got to think about all the aspects. But I think it was great for us because what we did is we went to these people and say, hey, we're meeting you, but we're not raising money. We want to show you where we are right now and where we're going to be in 3 or 6 months. And let's see if we're on the same page, if their relationship is good. But if we hit the goals that we said that we're going to hit, is this interesting to you? And the people that reacted good to that message, we started a conversation with them. And then, yeah, we hit the milestones, we got our customers. And then I think it was an easier conversation or easier journey to raise the first capital, because when you come and you say, hey, I need the capital, it's like everybody comes to these people and say, hey, I need. When you come and say, hey, I don't want your money, but here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to show you where I'm going to be. And when I'm going to be there, is it interesting for you? It's already like a different angle, like to speak to some of the folks who are in the, or angel investors, etc. Oh, this is refreshing. These two people, they don't want money right away. They want to show me what they're going to do. So that's like, if you can do it, that's my advice. Like, act this way. It's like a much more efficient.
I think that's absolutely brilliant. And first of all, it's typical. I mean, it's kind of funny being a software engineer. You use the if this then scenario. I mean, even if doing a pitch, I think it's brilliant. And I think you're very wise in that, because how many times do we hear people say, ideas are worth nothing? Ideas, I mean, they're just not worth anything. But going to potential investors and saying, if we execute on this, then this is what this is going to mean. And also, it's kind of interesting just thinking about this out loud. It's very much what your product ended up doing. It's like, hey, look, research and development is trying to figure out things that work, and our software is going to help to be able to answer this question of, you said you were going to do this, and is it actually moving toward what you had hoped that it would? And I think that is excellent advice for any entrepreneur, is to, and there's two things you said that I think make a lot of sense. I think people take for granted. So we hear this thing that is, it's an old trope. Your network is your net worth. And a lot of people tend to think of networking as simply schmoozing, going out, making contacts, showing up to cocktail parties and after hour events. Sounds to me like what you guys did, you worked hard in your chosen field as as software engineers, and then the people that you had worked around and had seen you in action, that it wasn't necessarily hardcore, hey, I want to get to know you in case I need something from you one day. But you had an audience of fellow professionals that knew what your capabilities were, that you had nurtured, and then you reached back. So if you're talking and guiding a new entrepreneur that wants to start a business, kind of, it sounds to me like you would say, one, don't go immediately ask for money. Instead, show what you're up to and what your goals are, and then be able to come back after you've achieved those goals and say, hey, we executed. And then have the people that you have, not that you did it to impress them, but they've at least seen you in action. They know your capabilities even prior to that. So, I mean, is that kind of the strategy that you guys followed whenever you were getting this thing kicked off?
Yeah, like I think you're absolutely right. Some of the people we knew throughout the journey, of our like earlier career. Some, even if we met them, we're not great at networking, by the way. Like, we keep joking, me and my partner Dan, like
You're software
we
engineers,
like
man.
to we're software engineers, exactly. We like to build things, etc.
right.
But then Yeah, like even if we met people for the first time, you already come with a track record, and they can ask, okay, they can find out and like run a back channel, and um, it's again, I keep saying everybody has their own journey. My journey is not the only journey; it's just my journey. Other people have other, but in my journey, that was what's helping me, like this track record of like being a hard worker, throughout my career, and some success, with the companies I worked in, and then just proving it again to these people. That's what worked for me.
So, how old is LinearB at this point? How old are you guys?
We are in our fifth year.
5th year. Okay, so you're
Fifth year.
into it. So that's good. You've got overcome that. And how many employees do you have now?
We're over 100 employees.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Literally 50-50 when I say 50 in Israel, 50 in the US.
Wow, that's crazy. Okay. So, and here's the reason why I asked this. Scaling is always so hard. Not just, and I'm not talking about when people hear scale, they like to think about scaling the business, more customers, more money, more whatever. But to me, one of the hardest things I always faced, Ori, as a entrepreneur was knowing when to hire, when to scale the human capital within the organization. And so for that individual now that might be a little bit behind you, they survived that first year, that first 24 months, they've made it through COVID or whatever. And now they're kind of growing and they're strained in there, but they're so scared. And I would like your take. And now is not just the software engineer, but you're a founder now. So you're having to run a business and think about these capital expenditures, these human capital expenses, and all these other things. What is the process that you and your partner have gone through to kind of quantify when you need to hire, when you need to add headcount? Because to me, this is just me talking. I don't know what anybody else thinks, but I know as a business leader, it's always one of the hardest things I ever go through is when to uh, add humans to the enterprise because you're adding personalities, you're adding psychology, you're adding expense. You might be adding talent that can help you grow, but there's just so much that goes into it. So as you guys went from that 2 to now over 100. How did you think through that process? And was it scary? And or did you like, no, no, we know this is the perfect person for this job? I mean, kind of what were some of the challenges with that?
Yeah, it's a great question. So I think again, what helped is like a background. I was a VP of R&D. I scaled organizations before, um, up to this size, more or less like 100. So um, it helped, but I think what's unique here, we had to learn. Both of us came from R&D. We had to learn go to market. Um, and it's exciting still, very, very exciting. By the way, I love my role because of that. We can talk about that, but um, I think it's in this time, in this economy, my advice for people is to think about, okay, what do I need to do to get to the next round or to the next, and kind of like think, okay, so understand your runway, understand your budget, understand how much you can hire within that, and just have your priorities right. So if you know that for the next milestone, you got to build a strong product, and you know that, I don't know, your seed going into A. So you want like, I don't know, 3 or 5 customers. That's what you want. That's what you think will help you like to raise the next round. And you need strong R&D. Understand the characteristics of your organization to get you to that level. Plan in advance, and you'll feel pain everywhere. You'll say, "Oh, well, maybe I get a marketing, but just stay focused on what you said is your utmost, because you'll feel the pain in a lot of places." So that's uh, one thing that I think I hope is helpful. The other thing is like I keep saying, it's like a startup is like the the level goes up all the time. All the time, all the time. It's like, it's some of the people that were great leaders in your organization at some phase just can't be the best leaders in your organization like in a year or 2 years when you scale. So I would just be open with people, ask them where they want to be, and just be very transparent with them when you're not seeing the results you need to see. but meaning like, hey, you could be an amazing individual contributor. I'm just speaking on marketing for a second. I know that you think that you can scale and be like the marketing leader, but in this, maybe it's right in other here I'm not seeing it. I still think you can be great. Let's just set expectations, right? If we're not, it's fine. You could probably be amazing as a marketing leader in our organization. It's not working here. And identify it fast and just act on it, because then you're fair with the person you're talking to. You're fair with your company, with the other 20 people that are looking at you like to carry this organization into success. Um, um, and there's no, I don't know, there's no one good advice how to identify it. Sometimes like people, oh, maybe I moved too fast and this person could have been an amazing leader. Usually it's the other way around. Like it's the other way around. Like you gotta, if you're not seeing like the growth that you need to see, it's probably the signs that you don't have the leader who can take you to the next level. We were very fortunate, by the way, in a lot of the functions to have people, not a lot, but in some of the functions to have people who went all the way with us and scaled all the way, like, to be VPs in the company right now, but it's not always the case.
You said something there that I have tried to really drill into every entrepreneur that I've worked with as an executive coach or just trying to help them get started up is the clear expectations of both parties. Is as the leader making sure and getting confirmation, do you understand what I'm expecting of you? And by the same token, make sure I understand what it is you want from this role and where you see yourself headed. And let's collectively set some metrics and some milestones that we can objectively look and determine. And that way, whenever you have the conversation of you're not meeting expectations that I have for you as your leader, then it's not as big of a surprise. And joining into that, I think it's something that a lot of leaders, they miss that, and also I think it saves the company a lot of money because what they figure is a lot of people try to just throw out that carrot of financial reward to someone and think, "Oh, if you hit this milestone, we'll give you more money," when in reality, all they wanna know is that they're meeting their senior leaders' expectations and vice versa, and they're finding purpose and their talents, their autonomy, and their independence, they're all being leveraged to move toward a goal that they both see as valuable to the organization. If you can get those questions answered, man, it sure does seem to make for a better situation. One of the things you mentioned, and I saw you kinda light up, and I wanna talk about this because it is one of the the things that few people understand. You gotta make a sell. You gotta go to market. You gotta go tell your story about why you're good and why you're doing it, and I saw you light up there. So tell me what is exciting about that go to market, especially again, not to beat up on you, but for an engineer who gets to actually go out and say, "Hey, look at this music I've written. I wanna sell some songs," essentially, you know? So kinda talk about that and what the process has been for you.
Yeah, I think it started even before starting this company. Again, as an engineering leader, I was brought into, you know what? I even take it like a step back. I was a developer, and then I became a manager. And then you learn. I keep using this term. It's the people are not deterministic. Like a function, you give it the same parameter, or it's two parameters, it will output the same out. People are different. Some people, what incentivize them or is, usually what incentivizes is like a purpose and the career growth. Some people, it's more about like, in some phases of their lives about money so people are different. And I think that challenge, I really liked it. And you can reflect to it in like closing a deal. And early on, I was brought as an engineering leader, which is like the best because it's like on other people like to win the deal. You just come as like the technology person, and when you help and the deal happens, it's you get a lot of joy from it. Uh, but then you learn there's like a lot of like other obstacles in the way. Sometimes like you got the technical win, but somebody, the champion changed at the last minute. So um, I think that's where like my passion started, like to, okay, I like building products, but in order for me to build products that solve problems and put them in the hands of customers. I also gotta have go to market, get success, and prove that I can somebody can demo the product. People can envision how it helps them solve a problem, and then navigate through all the things that to help close a deal. So that thing to do it like once and then scale it from the first couple of deals that me and my founder like closed to bring in the first rep that can close it, to scaling the sales organization, to now, okay, marketing and how do you get enough demand, to what I call product market fit flow state. I like everybody talk about product market fit, but flow state to me is like you message and market and then sell and then roll out the same thing. Which sometimes in organizations, like people, message one thing, but the reps will say, hey, yeah, sell one specific use case that's not exactly. And then when you roll out, people are trying to roll out the playbook and people say, no, but I bought it for this. So just getting into that flow state, that's like, I think we still view it, me and my partner, as a machine. That's like because we're engineers. So how do we engineer scale, etc. And now, every time it's like every new phase, something new excite us in like in the journey of like cracking like go to market, and also like it still all relates to product, because if you have a strong product, it's not enough, but it's a foundational like condition like to success. It's not enough. So I've seen like amazing companies with amazing product, they didn't know how to go to market, but it helps if you have a strong. It's a good start if you have a strong product.
Yeah, well, that's one of the things, that Elon Musk is constantly talking about is he's so product focused, but also I would say he's pretty good at promotion, go to market, telling the story. And that's, it's the whole package. All right. So one of the things that I'm really fascinated by, in your case is, it's very close to home with me. Whenever I was in business school, there were a lot of engineers in my MBA cohort that were essentially trying to get to where you are. They had this engineering background, whether it was for where they were writing code or whatever the case may be. And that's how I'm kind of using software engineer at this point, is more of a electrical engineering and writing software engineering. And they wanted to get into more of the business aspects of it, to understand more of the bigger picture to where you are now as an executive. What are some of the things that you have learned along the way that in making that transition? Of course, I know you were already managing people whenever in your previous life before the acquisition and before you founded your own company, but now that you are as a founder, what are some of the things that you're doing to hone your skills as a leader, as a business executive that does have to, understand the P&L at a higher degree? And maybe I don't know what your investment makeup is, but to have to go back to those investors to constantly tell them the story about processes and progress and where you guys are going. What are some of the things that you're doing to make yourself a better leader and executive now that you've made this transition into founder?
I think two key things is that again were right even when you're an engineering leader. So first, I'm always curious, like learning more things, understanding SaaS KPIs to the last bit of them, um, and then I would say always hire people that are better than you, at least at one or two things.
Mm, genius.
If I'm bringing leader that just to feel comfortable that I'm smarter than them, like I'm lost. But I'm always saying like I want to hire leaders that are better than me, at least at one, hopefully two things that I can, and then you learn from them a lot of things. Then the same goes to, um, you know, early on you meet a lot of people who want to be advisors, and you go through, you understand what it's the meaning of a board member. It's almost like it's a long relationship like that you got to manage, and so I keep saying, I was lucky. I think it's luck, but also intuition, or who will connect, like, and we can build a relationship. And sometimes we'll think different. And how do you handle those, different of opinions? So what I learned is in the board and in the couple of people I take advice from is, I think my tip is surround yourself with enough people and learn when to listen to each one of those. At the end of the day, you're making the decisions. You're making the decisions. And if you ask for two opinions, you're gonna have all of them.
Mhm.
People will go say, "Hey, don't go PLG," to, "Hey, you gotta go PLG." Like, you'll hear like the contrast. So just picking and understanding when to listen to who. I'll give you. I keep using this analogy, like from the movie The Godfather, where I think it's Al Pacino, like Mike is telling Tom Hagen, it's like, "Hey, you're not a wartime consigliere. You've done great things for the family, but we're at war now. Now I need a wartime consigliere." So I like this analogy because there's time that you need the person on the board or the advisor that seeing things in a very, high contrast and very opinionated. This is what you should be doing. There's times that you need to talk to the person who is a sounding board. You kind of know the answers, but it's sort of like a therapist. Like, you talk to them and you kind of understand on your own. There's time that you got to go to the person who's like excellent at like the SaaS KPIs and you know, it's just like, again, I didn't go through business school. I think I just learned those things like while running the company and building the company. Um, so I think my advice is like, yeah, have your own beliefs. At the end of the day, it's you making the decisions, and then surround yourself by people that you feel confident enough to consult with them in the right timings. By the way, at the end of the day, it's your decision, but it's helpful.
Well, it's funny you said this because I literally just released an episode of my podcast today where I talk about that very thing, about having your own personal board of directors. And also, have you happened to pick up this book yet? It's new. It's by Shane Parrish, Clear Thinking. There it is right there. He
No, I didn't.
uses he uses the exact analogy that you did from The Godfather, talking about Tom Hagen and the wartime conciliary.
Yeah.
It absolutely he like, and of course I'm a diehard Godfather fan as well. There's so many lessons to be gleaned on leadership and everything in that movie. And that's one of the things he actually talks about. He said there are times when you need that wartime conciliary. There's other times you need the peacetime conciliary, but you gotta know when and who those people are. And so, and along those lines, do you have, the I guess the old adage is we are the average of the 5 people we spend the most time with. And that's one of the things I've been really honing in a lot on, is just trying to help people, because I've been very, very fortunate that, I've had incredibly bright and accomplished people that have come into my life that I've been able to learn so much from. And I'm just like you, man. I always want to hire people that are smarter than me, and I want to be around people that I believe are smarter than me, which isn't all that challenging all the time. But I look at it as, you know, playing tennis against someone who's better than you. That's the only way you're going to improve. If you play against somebody that's going to dominate all the time, you're never going to get any better. Are there some things that you do to make sure that you're spending time with right people, like, and just, and you going, and people that may have nothing to do, and this can be a virtual mentor. That's one of the things I've talked a lot about. The value of looking at people that you may never interact with on a daily basis, but you look to them and how they made decisions. You can read a biography or you can watch them and work. Do you kind of think about those things and bring those type of people into your life? And if you do, if you do you have any that you could say, "Hey, I've looked at this individual as I've started building my company and gone, there's something there that I've researched and I want to try to learn from." Do you have any folks like that in your life?
Yeah. So there's like, folks you met in person.
Mhm.
Usually to me, that's like where the connection is stronger than like reading about. But reading about people is also inspiring, and um, I like the stories. There's some cool stories about like it's industry leaders here in Israel, even like all the industry. I like those stories that there's about people who are like, there was one person who built like a like big factory here. He was even a minister at one time in Israel, and they asked him, and he was electrical engineer or machine engineer, and they asked him, what's inspiring, or what's going to be written on your tombstone, and he was saying engineer. Like I want the title engineer on my. So those kind of stories, or people like the values that me and my partner, like we really like promote. This leader who brought, I think, Intel into like Israel, and he sat in a cubicle like everybody else. It's like, what do you mean? Like I'm getting a room and everybody else is like, no, I'm sitting with everybody. Yeah, when I need to speak, I'm gonna go to my room. I don't have a room until now. It's like still like so. I get snippets of stories of leadership that I like, that I pick on virtually, like face to face is like what I'm taking more like from, like, again, board and people who were entrepreneurs before, and their challenges. Um, yeah, those are like those, like, I keep saying I have like two I had two grandfathers. Both of them passed by now. One I didn't meet when I was 1 year. I met, but when I was 1 year old, like he passed away. So, and he was an entrepreneur. But he was like building roads and paving. It was a contractor, etc. And I'm keep reading about how his life and all the ups and downs. He was like very rich at one point and bankrupted like 3 times. And so the sum of this like excitement that I take from him, the other grandfather lived a more peaceful life, and so those are also the people that inspire me, like my roots, like where I came from.
So what do you do to take care of yourself? I mean, as an entrepreneur, that's one of the things that has been kind of interesting to me. Like in Austin, Texas, there's a place called the Athlete Generator Lab that that my friend Dr. Jess Tankina, she and her husband Delphin opened, and she was surprised. She thought that it would be mostly a lot of former professional athletes or whatever, just hard charging athletes that would be her members. But what she's found is that it's a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of people just like you. So are you focused on, and it's just kind of one of the things I geek out on is health and wellness. As a matter of fact, I'll be recording my weekly episode of Authentic Health Fridays here later this afternoon with my buddy, Dr. Gus Vickery. That's just kind of the closest thing I have to a hobby, Ori, essentially, is my health. Are there things that you're doing to maintain good mindfulness, health, wellness, to keep the primary business tool any of us have, which is our being? Are there some things there that you're focused on?
Yeah, here, by the way, I got to give a lot of credit to Dan, my partner, because when we started, the company, we said, instead of having the same 4 values that every company have, we're employee first, customer obsession, all these like cliches, that we decided to adopt behaviors. I won't go over all of them, but one of the categories of behaviors is work-life balance. And then there's foundational behavior and exceptional. In the foundational, it's like, okay, you do something to take care of yourself. In the exceptional, you share with the other employees, okay, this is my program, this is what I'm doing, and this is how it helps me. And it's really helpful because for me, I picked, I never thought I was going to do yoga. I picked yoga from my partner then. But I'm also a athlete, so I run. It's changing, but I either swim, a lot, or run a lot. Now I'm back to running. I think there's something that's happening once you're in your, I don't know, your exercise. You got to go into like the 45 minutes of running or swimming, that you get into this meditation area where your mind is stop thinking, and there's not enough oxygen to think about work problems, and it
Mhm.
just empties. It just like focus on your breathing and all. Really, really helpful. Like, so I'm making sure I'm doing this like at least like twice a week,
That's
and
one of
I
the things
learned it from my partner. So all the credit for him.
That's one of the things that I just, as a matter of fact, you mentioned, yoga. I have just now gotten back to doing yoga. It is such a, and it's not because I didn't like it or I just stopped. I mean, I do a ton of things, but one of the things that I had neglected was yoga, and it is so good for mindfulness, for balance work. It's just there's so many benefits to it. So, and I like that idea too of sharing, because man, one of the things that I doing this podcast and talking to the cool people I get to talk to, and again, just being somebody who geeks out on health and wellness, I'm really blown away at um, how little is known by other people that don't find this stuff as interesting. And so it's really cool that you that you have this behavior that you guys are instilling of, hey, if you got something that works for you that you're benefiting from, share it with someone. Don't just keep it to yourself. And so I find that very cool. Now, one thing before I let you go, because you're in the tech space, there's two things. One, I want you to just kind of give this audience, because look, I'm stateside. My wife and I, she is dying to go to Israel. Obviously, that's not going to happen anytime soon. But that's on one of our bucket list trips. I have a lot of friends that have been to Israel, but I don't think people, other than the religious aspects of Israel, they don't understand what a tech hub, Tel Aviv in particular, where you are, is. So, what is it like? Just kind of give a description of the day-to-day life in Tel Aviv and the entrepreneur space, the tech space. You know, for someone that's here, just the typical American, what is that atmosphere like? And you've been both stateside, so how does it compare with like Silicon Valley and different business hubs of the states?
Yeah, Tel Aviv is the best because it's a great tech hub. A lot of companies, a lot of like energy, a lot of meetups. If you're into like, software and development, you find a lot of meetups. If you're into like the business, there's really like tons of like a lot of companies and a lot of great energy. People are always shocked the first time they're coming in, like because they have this perception of what they think about Israel and Tel Aviv. So the other thing is that Tel Aviv is a very alive city, vibrant with a lot of like nightlife and great restaurants, and in peaceful times of when we're not in the situation like we are now. And so it's a great combination because, like, I don't know if you compare to some of the places I've been that are exciting in the States in terms of like the people that you can learn from. But then some of these cities are kind of like more, uh, calm at night and less of like this nightlife. Well, Tel Aviv is like a great, and some places in the States are amazing in nightlife. You, Tel Aviv is like, it's small, it's not that big, and you get both of these things, and it's a charm that you just got to be here like to feel it. So I hope it provides a description.
Yeah, no, that's good. One of my closest friends, a guy named Kenneth Depew, he and I worked on the Senate staff together here in the States, and he got his master's at the University of Tel Aviv. I guess is what it is, or is it Tel Aviv University? How, if I'm saying that wrong.
Yeah.
He got his master's degree there, and he loves Israel. And in fact, at one time, obviously, he lived there when he was going to graduate school, and he had considered making that. He wanted to try to, be there far more. And he's given me similar descriptions. He's like, you can't imagine how fun it is and cool, and just it's a really cool place, but I really can't get my brain around it, so I'm hoping that I'll be able to get there someday. And then the second thing I wanted to add before I let you go, being in the tech space and being a prominent thinker in technology, I gotta ask you, what are your thoughts on where AI is taking us? Have you started to leverage it for what you guys are doing? And just kind of give, just like, from someone who obviously is gonna know the more intricate features of AI and its potential than someone like me, what are your thoughts?
Yes. So we're looking at AI from two angles. We're doing internal things to adopt it. So yeah, one example that I can say is like there's a Slack channel where the sales reps ask questions, right? And usually they wait for a product person to answer them. So we built internal things that we kind of like parse our, like learn the model like from our documents, and it just answers them. So all of a sudden 80% of the answers they get automatic instead of like waiting for the product. So we do a lot of these internal, not a lot, but two or three initiatives of these internal things, how to capitalize on Gen AI internally. What I think Gen AI will do to software is exciting because I think there's a true potential of like of getting a great productivity gains. By the way, I don't think like machines will replace developers, but the role of the developers will be different. Okay, a lot of the like the initial code could be like generated, and now developers will need to read the code, inspect it, and kind of alter it where they where they need. And by the way, developers, we like to write code. There's not a lot of developers who like to read code. They
Right.
keep saying, "Hey, we got to learn to read code again." And what I think is going to happen is now the bottleneck will go to what I call the development pipeline. It's like, again, what LinearB does, like looking at what happened when code is being generated and until it's in production. You got to approve the change. So a human need to read the code and approve it. Then the CI workload runs. Then the CD. Then so in order to unleash that potential, I think the software industry will still need to like fix other things to enjoy this like 10x promise. So that's where, at least where my thoughts are.
Yeah, that's exciting, and that's one of the things that I see. It's like, it's not this. I've said this before. It's not this, you know, uh, humans or AI. It's, humans plus AI make for a better outcome. And I think one of the cool things too, and you correct me if I'm wrong, but like, and you kind of said it, being able to having to read code, and the thing that I think is missing, and John Ricketts, who's the CEO of Riderly, was on the podcast, which is a generative AI company, and we talked about the most important thing is being able to ask the right questions. And so I guess, and that's where I think the true human element comes in, is to be able to, now AI can start to question itself, but it's more it's generative. It takes all the questions that have been asked, just spits out answers. I think it's really gonna be a time where we harken back to, which, I guess it was Voltaire that said, "Judge a man by his questions, not his answers." It's kinda coming into, he's like, "Hey," he said that way back, and now it's really making some sense, right? So we gotta be able to ask those good questions.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah.
Ask the right questions. Alter, some of the answers. Apply the human intervention in the right places so you can capitalize on that.
Wonderful. Ori, this has been fun, man. I think that we've given the listener a good insight into your company, whether they're gonna need to, you know, whether it's LinearB, which that was not really my goal, was to give them all the ins and outs necessarily of what you guys are doing. I'm sure you talk about that enough in your industry space, but I really wanted to visit with you as an entrepreneur, man. It's built something, that you're a founder, and I think you just dropped some incredible wisdom here for the audience today. Is there anything else that we haven't covered that we need to cover before I let you go? I want to make sure your time is most well spent here.
No, I really appreciate the time and the conversation and, feeding off your ideas and questions, and really enjoy the time here.
Well, good. All right. Well, thanks so much for joining us. And folks, it is LinearB, Ori Keren. And where can people follow the company and you, and so they can celebrate your success? Where's the best place to keep in touch?
The company, and they can go to linearb.io. We have a free version. They can try it there. I'm on LinkedIn. You can find me really easily. I'm on Twitter as well. LinkedIn is more strong. Like I spend more time there, but those are the places.
All right. Ori, thanks so much for joining us, folks. He's Ori. I'm Jason, and we are out. Well, that does it for this episode of The Jason Wright Show. Thank you so much for listening. This has been a Texas Titan Media production. Fourth Wall did the music. And as always, thank you so much for listening. Please consider going out to jasonwrightnow.com and signing up for the Vitruvian letter. Also, please go out to iTunes. It takes like 30 seconds to just leave us a 5-star rating. It does wonders for the podcast. I would be so grateful. And with that, until we meet again, go crush it and endeavor to improve always in all ways. I'm out.